Have you ever noticed how a house is never really empty? Even after people leave, they leave things behind. Impressions. A handprint in the cement of a new sidewalk. A scuff mark on a doorframe. A toy forgotten in the back of a closet. Echoes, they say. Every house is haunted, in a way, but some are more haunted than others. Some houses don't just hold echoes of the past, they hold a darkness that's waiting, a presence that's hungry, a story that isn't finished yet. My partner Chloe and I, we were looking for a fresh start, a quiet place to outrun our own ghosts. We found this little cottage, miles from anywhere, sitting right on the edge of a great, empty, it was old, cheap, and totally isolated, exactly what we thought we needed. We were so wrong. The second night here, while exploring a dusty crawl space in the attic, we found a stack of water-damaged journals, 5 of them, each one filled with stories. At first, we just thought they were fiction. Tea leaves written by people to pass the lonely nights out here. But as we read them, this creeping dread started to settle in. The stories felt familiar. The fear in them felt real. And the more we read, the more we realized they weren't just stories. They were warnings. Tonight, I'm going to share them with you. These are the 5 tailies we found. The 5 stories that blur the line between a classic horror story and the chilling reality that we now live in. These are the tailies that will freeze your blood. The first journal we picked up was bound in this faded leather. Its pages so brittle I was afraid they'd turn to dust. The handwriting inside was elegant, but the ink was smudged in places, like it had been touched by panicked, sweaty hands. Chloe huddled closer to me under a thin blanket, the only light in the room from a flickering lamp on the floor. I took a breath and started to read. Section 5, The Watcher House in June 2014. Derek and Maria Broaddus purchased their dream home. A sprawling 6-bedroom house at 657 Boulevard in the serene town of Westfield, New Jersey. They paid over $1.3 million and began renovations, eagerly anticipating moving in with their 3 young children. But before they could spend a single night there, their dream turned into a nightmare. A letter arrived, addressed only to the new owner. It was from an individual who called themselves the Watcher. The letter was chillingly personal. The Watcher asserted that their family had been monitoring the house for generations. My grandfather watched the house in the 1920s and my father watched in the 1960s. It is now my time, the letter stated. The author knew specific details about the Broaddus family and their home, including the number and ages of their children, whom they unnervingly referred to as young blood. The letter concluded with a dreadful promise. I will be watching. This was the first of several letters. The subsequent notes became even more menacing. The Watcher questioned if the young blood would play in the basement, adding, I would be very afraid if I were them. The letters implied the writer was nearby, noting they could see the family's youngest child using an easel inside the house. Petrified, the Broaddus family never moved in, finding themselves trapped paying a mortgage and taxes on a home they were too terrified to occupy. They contacted the police, who launched an investigation, but the Watcher was never found. Authorities investigated neighbors and considered it might be a hoax, but no one was ever charged. The Broaddus family attempted to sell the house, even trying to sell it to a developer for demolition, but were blocked by the town. After years of fear and financial strain, they finally sold the house in 2019 at a significant financial loss. The new owners have not reported receiving any letters. The identity of the Watcher and their obsession with 657 Boulevard remains a profoundly disturbing and unsolved mystery. These stories serve as a stark reminder that our world can be a strange and deeply unsettling place. What do you believe truly happened in these cases? Do you have an unexplained story of your own? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you'd like to explore more real-life mysteries that'll keep you up at night, be sure to like this video and subscribe. From the frozen peaks of Russia to a peaceful suburban street in New Jersey, these accounts leave us with the same deep feeling of unease. They lack neat, satisfying conclusions. The villain isn't unmasked, and the puzzle is never fully pieced together. They touch upon our most profound fears, the fear of the unknown, the fear that we are never completely safe, and the fear that sometimes there are no logical answers. These stories linger with us because they suggest that the line separating our reality from a world of inexplicable horror is terrifyingly thin. Section 4. The Enfield Poltergeist in a modest house in Enfield, a suburb of London. One of the most famous and well-documented paranormal cases in history kicked off in August 1977. It started small. Peggy Henderson, a single mother, called the police to her home after 2 of her 4 children, 11-year-old Janet and 30-year-old Margaret, said their furniture was moving by itself. A police constable who answered the call later signed a statement saying she actually saw a chair slide across the floor for no reason. That was just the beginning. For the next 18 months, the family and over 30 witnesses, including paranormal investigators, journalists, and neighbors, reported that things got much, much worse. There were loud knocking sounds that came from inside the walls. Toys would be thrown across rooms, and heavy furniture would overturn on its own. The activities seemed to center around young Janet. She was allegedly thrown from her bed, seen levitating, and even seemed to be channeling a disembodied voice, a gruff old man who claimed to be a former resident named Bill Wilkins. The case was heavily investigated by Maurice Gross and Guy Lyon Playfair, members of the Society for Psychical Research, who were convinced the haunting was real. However, the whole thing has always been dogged by claims that it was just a hoax. Skeptics pointed out that the poltergeist often only performed when no one was looking directly at it. Janet herself was even caught on camera bending spoons, and later admitted she and her sister faked a few things to see if the investigators would catch them. Believers argue that while the girls might have played some pranks, they couldn't have faked the sheer amount and intensity of the phenomena that so many people witnessed. They maintained that some events, like heavy furniture moving and the genuine terror the family experienced, were real. Whether it was an elaborate prank by two clever girls or a true case of a house tormented by a restless spirit, the Enfield poltergeist remains one of the most debated and unsettling paranormal cases out there, blurring the line between childhood mischief and real horror. Title 5 Surreal Real-Life Horror Accounts that will haunt your dreams sometimes. The scariest monsters aren't hiding under your bed or in your closet. They re-hiding in plain sight, tucked away in the details of a news report or the transcript of a police interview. These aren't campfire stories. They're documented, real-life accounts of terror that defy any and all logical explanation. From a group of hikers found with injuries that baffled medical experts to a family tormented by letters from a phantom observer, these mysteries prove that sometimes reality is far more frightening than any movie. Section 1, the Dyatlov Pass Incident. Picture this. It's the dead of winter, January 1959. 10 experienced hikers are setting out on an incredibly tough expedition through Russia's Ural Mountains. One guy gets sick and has to turn back, a stroke of luck that probably saved his life. The other 9, led by Igor Dyatlov, were all pros, totally prepared for the brutal journey ahead. They were supposed to send a telegram on February 12th to say they'd made it. That telegram never came. Weeks later, when a search party finally reached their last campsite on a mountain ominously named Kolatsa, or Dead Mountain, they stumbled into a scene of baffling horror. The hiker's tent was abandoned, but it had been sliced open from the inside. It was as if something terrified them so much they couldn't waste a single second unzipping the flap. All of their supplies, warm clothes, and gear were just left behind. The search party followed their footprints in the snow, leading away from the tent and into the freezing wilderness. The first 2 bodies they found, Yuri Krivnishenko and Yuri Doroshenko, were under a big cedar tree over a kilometer away. They were dressed only in their underwear, lying next to the remains of a small fire. One of them appeared to have bitten off his own knuckle. 3 more bodies, including the group's leader, Igor Dyatlov, were found scattered between the tree and the camp. Their positions made it look like they were desperately trying to crawl back to the tent before they froze to death. But it took another 2 months to find the last 4 hikers, who were buried under 10 feet of snow in a ravine. And their injuries are the most disturbing part of this whole mystery. One, Nicholas Thibault-Brignaud, had a skull fracture so bad it was like he'd been in a car crash. 2 others, Semyon Zolotaryev and Ludmila Dubinina, had crushed chests, but there were no external wounds, no bruises, no soft tissue damage, as if they'd been crushed by an immense, invisible force. To make it even stranger, Dubinina was missing her tongue, and both she and Zolotaryev were missing their eyes. The official investigation concluded that the hikers died from a compelling natural force. For decades, theories have swirled. Was it an avalanche, secret military weapons testing, or even an attack by some unknown creature? Recently, a slab avalanche theory has gained traction, suggesting a delayed slide of heavy snow caused the panic. And yet, that doesn't fully explain the bizarre missing soft tissues or the traces of radiation found on some of their clothes. To this day, the Dyatlov Pass incident is a chilling puzzle with no solution, a terrifying reminder of the power of the unknown. The downtown platform was deserted as I swiped my card through the turnstile. It was that peculiar hour too late for the night owls, too early for the early birds. The digital display flickered ominously, its red letters spelling out to 15 a.m. not in service. Yet, as if defying its own message, a train screeched into the station. its empty cars glowing with an eerie, pale light. I shouldn't have boarded. Every instinct screamed at me to turn back, to wait for the next train, or better yet, to call a cab. But the door slid open, inviting me in with a silent promise of a quick ride home. As I stepped inside, the fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting long shadows across the empty seats. The train lurched forward, the doors closing with a finality that sent a shiver down my spine. I was alone, or so I thought, as the subway car hurtled into the darkness of the tunnel. First stop, Jefferson Street. The seats were warm, as if someone had just stood up. It was an unsettling sensation, considering I was the only passenger. As I shifted uncomfortably, trying to shake off the feeling of invisible eyes watching me, a half-empty coffee cup rolled across the floor, coming to rest at my feet. Steam still curled from its lid, defying the laws of thermodynamics and common sense. With trembling hands, I picked up the cup. The warmth of it seeped into my fingers, too real to be a hallucination. My eyes fell under the seat stuck to its side. In stark black ink it read, "Dark roast to 14 a.m. 1 minute before the train had arrived. 1 minute before I had made the fateful decision to board." The implications sent my mind reeling. Who had been drinking this coffee mere moments ago, and where had they vanished to? Before I could ponder further, the intercom crackled to life, startling me out of my thoughts. A voice, distorted and distant, announced, "Next stop, Jefferson Street." But we were already there. The train hadn't moved since I'd noticed the coffee cup. The doors remained firmly shut, the platform outside a blur of indistinct shapes and shadows. Something was very, very wrong. I stood up, intending to move towards the doors, to force them open if I had to. But as I took a step, the train lurched violently, throwing me back into my seat. The lights flickered, plunging the car into momentary darkness. When they steadied, I found myself staring at a newspaper that had materialized on the seat across from me. The headline made my blood run cold. "Local commuter vanishes on mysterious late-night train below it." To my horror was my own face staring back at me. It was my work ID photo, the one I had taken just last week. But the date on the newspaper, it was tomorrow's. My heart pounding in my chest, I reached for the paper, but it disintegrated at my touch, crumbling into ash that scattered across the floor. The train picked up speed, the rhythmic clacking of wheels on tracks growing faster, more frantic. The lights flickered again, longer this time. In the moments of darkness, I could have sworn I heard whispers, countless voices murmuring just below the threshold of understanding. When the lights came back on, I let out a strangled gasp. Every window now reflected a different passenger wearing my face, all mouthing the same words. "You missed your stop." Panic seized me. I stumbled to my feet, lurching towards the doors, but they remained stubbornly closed, not even a hint of the next station visible through the windows. The tunnel outside had changed, the familiar concrete walls replaced by a rushing void of shadows and half-formed shapes. I fumbled for my phone, desperate to call for help, to leave some record of what was happening. But as I pulled it from my pocket, the screen flickered to life of its own accord. A single text message appeared, sent from my own number. "Get off before IT changes routes." The words had barely registered when the phone died, the screen going black with a finality that felt like a death knell. I looked up, hoping against hope to see some sign of where we were, some clue as to how to escape this nightmare. The map above the doors caught my eye, but it was wrong now. All the familiar station names had vanished, replaced by a single, ominous destination, terminal. The train showed no signs of slowing. If anything, it seemed to be picking up speed, hurtling through the darkness towards some unknown final stop. The shadows outside the windows grew thicker, more substantial. They pressed against the glass, as if trying to find a way in. I closed my eyes, trying to wake myself from what surely must be a dream. But when I opened them again, nothing had changed. The reflections in the windows still wore my face, their lips still forming that haunting phrase over and over. As the train plunged deeper into the abyss, I realized with growing horror that I might never see another station again. The world I knew had been left behind, replaced by this surreal, nightmarish journey to a destination I couldn't begin to fathom. Hours seemed to pass, or perhaps it was only minutes. Time had lost all meaning in this liminal space between reality and something far more sinister. The lights continued to flicker, each time revealing new horrors, shadowy figures that vanished when I tried to focus on them, impossible geometries twisting the interior of the car, my own reflection, aged and withered, staring back at me with eyes full of regret. Just when I thought I could bear no more, The train began to slow. The screeching of brakes filled the air, a sound so normal, so mundane, that it felt out of place in this otherworldly journey. Through the windows, I could see pinpricks of light emerging from the darkness, growing larger and brighter with each passing second. The intercom crackled once more, but instead of a voice, all that emerged was a high-pitched whine that set my teeth on edge. The doors slid open with a hiss, revealing not a platform but a swirling vortex of light and shadow. I stood frozen, unable to move, unable to think. Part of me wanted to stay on the train, clinging to the last vestiges of the world I knew, but a deeper instinct, something primal and urgency, screamed at me to jump, to take my chances with the unknown rather than remain trapped in this mobile purgatory. With a deep breath, I closed my eyes and stepped forward into the void. The sensation of falling lasted an eternity and no time at all. When I opened my eyes again, I found myself standing on a familiar platform. The digital display read 5:30 a.m. next train in 2 minutes. Early morning commuters milled about, their faces buried in phones and newspapers, oblivious to my presence. Relief washed over me, so intense it made my knees weak. It had all been a dream, a vivid nightmare brought on by too much caffeine and too little sleep. I let out a shaky laugh, drawing curious glances from nearby passengers. As the next train pulled into the station, I reached into my pocket for my transit card. My fingers brushed against something unfamiliar, a crumpled receipt. With trembling hands, I pulled it out and smoothed it open. Dark rose to 14 a.m., the world tilted sideways. As I stumbled onto the train, my eyes met those of my reflection in the window. For just a moment, I saw not my own face, but that of the other passengers from that impossible journey. Their lips moved in perfect unison. Welcome back. You didn't really think you could escape, did you? The doors closed with a final, damning hiss, and as the train pulled away from the platform, I realized with growing dread that my journey had only just begun. The fluorescent lights flickered, casting an eerie glow across the empty coffee shop. I had taken this graveyard shift for the solitudeous me, the hulking machines, and the occasional late-night customer desperate for a last-minute print job tonight. Something felt different. The air was thick with the scent of toner and stale coffee. I settled into my usual spot behind the counter, ready for another uneventful night. That's when I heard a soft worry from the back room. Curious, I made my way past rows of idle copiers. The sound grew louder, more insistent. I rounded the corner and froze. The industrial printer, unplugged and gathering dust for months, was humming to life. A single sheet of paper slid out, crisp and warm. My hands trembled as I picked it up. In stark black letters, it read, "Welcome back, Sarah. We've been waiting." My blood ran cold. I've never told anyone here my real name. I crumpled the paper, tossing it in the trash. Just a prank, I told myself. But as I turned to leave, the printer whirred again. This time, it spat out a grainy security camera image. My heart stopped. It showed me sitting at the front desk from just moments ago, but looming behind my chair was a dark, elongated figure, its spindly fingers reaching for my neck. I spun around, pulse racing. The shop was empty. Another page printed, "Don't look behind you next time," it warned. Sleep eluded me for days after that. I considered quitting, but something kept drawing me back. Maybe it was morbid curiosity, or maybe I was just losing my mind. On the fourth night, a customer arrived just before closing. An old woman, hunched and frail, hobbled to the counter. "I need to make a copy," she wheezed, sliding a yellowed photograph across the desk. I nodded, taking the picture. It showed a young girl, maybe 8 or 9, with a familiar smile. My smile. "Where did you get this?" I asked, voice barely above a whisper. The old woman's eyes gleamed. "Oh, dearie, don't you remember? You gave it to me. Or rather, you will." She cackled a dry, rattling sound that sent chills down my spine. When I blinked, she was gone. In her place sat a single sheet of paper. Time is running out. Tik Toker. The next night, I came prepared. Holy water, sage, even a crucifix borrowed from my Catholic neighbor. I was done being afraid. As I unlocked the shop, a gust of wind extinguished the street lamps. Darkness engulfed me. The door slammed shut behind me, lock clicking into place. From the shadows came a low, mechanical hum. One by one, every machine in the shop roared to life. Copiers, printers, even the ancient fax machine in the corner all working in terrifying unison. Papers flew everywhere, each bearing a single word repeated over and over. Soon, I scrambled for the exit, but the door wouldn't budge. The cacophony grew, deafening. Through the chaos, I spotted movement in the security mirror. A figure, tall and impossibly thin, emerged from the darkest corner. Its face was a blank sheet of paper, constantly shifting and reforming. It spoke, its voice, a garbled mix of dial-up tones and printer static. "Your contract is up, Sarah. Time to make your final copy." Long inky tendrils shot out from its body, wrapping around my arms and legs. I screamed, but the sound was lost in the mechanical roar. As consciousness faded, I saw one last sheet of paper flutter to the ground. On it, my own handwriting. "Help wanted. Night shift at 24-hour copy shop. No experience necessary." The world went dark. When they found me the next morning, slumped over the front desk, I was breathing but unresponsive. The security footage showed nothing but static. The shop reopened a week later with a new night clerk. They say she's friendly, efficient, and always ready with a smile. But if you look closely, you might notice her eyes are just a little too blank. Her movements a little too precise. And sometimes, late at night when the shop is empty, customers swear they can hear the faint sound of screaming coming from inside the copiers. But that's just an urban legend, isn't it? The library book that keeps returning to me. The first time I saw it, the book was sitting on the returns cart with its spine cracked open like a yawn. The House on Blackwood Lane by Ellen Velt. The title meant nothing to me. The library sticker said it had last been checked out in 1987 before I was born, on yet the pages smelled like my shampoo. I flipped it open. On the title page, in faded pencil, "For Emily, return when finished." My name, in handwriting that looked almost like mine. Day 1. The story was about a woman who moves into a house where the rooms don't stay the same. Doors open to different hallways depending on the time of day. The prose was clinical, almost like a manual. When the kitchen towel turns blue, do not answer the phone. When the mirrors show the wrong furniture, close your eyes until they count to 30. I laughed at how seriously it took itself. Then I noticed the sticky note tucked near the end. "You left the back door unlocked again." My apartment doesn't have a back door. Day 3, I returned the book. The librarian scanned it without looking up. "This one's popular," she said. That night I found it on my coffee table. The cover was warmer than the room. A new chapter had appeared. What to do when you find the extra window. My hands shook as I turned to my bedroom. The wall where my headboard rested now held a small, square window of frosted glass, like in a bathroom. It hadn't been there that morning. Through it I saw a bookshelf. My books, in the wrong order. Day 5, I donated it to the used bookstore across town. Came home to find it propped on my pillow, damp as if left out in rain. The note this time: "You shouldn't have given away the key. Now it has to use the vents." My air conditioner kicked on. Something rattled in the ducts, not mice. Something with rhythm. Knocking 3, slow, rhythm fast. The code I use when my hands are full and I need my roommate to open the door. I live alone. Day 7, I burned it in the parking lot behind the library. The pages curled black, screaming like green wood. The last line I saw before the flames took it: "Emily, you know this won't work." At 3 a.m., my doorbell rang. On the step, a charred copy, still warm. The new final chapter: "How to live with what you've awakened." Inside, pressed between the pages, a house key. It fits my front door. I haven't tried it yet. I will tonight, after I count the windows again. I found a VHS tape of my own murder, but I'm still alive. The tape shouldn't exist. That was my first thought when I pulled it from the cardboard box at the flea market. It was nestled between a Barney and Friends rerun and a blank labeled workout video. Its spine marked in my own handwriting. "Home, do not watch." I laughed. Some sick joke. But when I flipped it over, my blood turned to ice. Scratched into the plastic was a date. Tomorrow's first playthrough. The footage was grainy, washed in that sickly blue-green tint of old camcorders. It showed my living room, my couch, my coffee table, the dent in the wall from when I'd drunkenly tripped last New Year's. Then the camera panned left, and there I was. Dead, my body lay sprawled on the carpet, throat slit, ear to ear. The blood pooled black in the VHS static seeping into the cracks between floorboards. The killer stood just out of frame. All I could see was a gloved hand gripping a box cut around a single word carved into my forearm post-mortem. Soon, my hands shook so badly the remote slipped to the floor. The tape kept playing. Now the camera zoomed in on my corpse's face, and my reflection in its dead eyes. Not the killer. Me. The screen cut to static. Second playthrough, I told myself it was a prank. Some AI deepfake, some asshole with too much time and a vintage camcorder. But when I rewound and played it again, the footage had changed. Now, the camera lingered on my bookshelf. A book was missing: Pet Cemetery, the one currently sitting on my nightstand. And the murder happened later. The clock on my wall, barely visible before. Now read 3:17 a.m. The killer's glove was gone. Now they're bare fingers long, pale, identical to mine, dug into my hair, yanking my head back to expose the throat. The blade flashed. This time, the word of my arm was different. Closer. Third playthrough, I didn't sleep that night. At 2:53 a.m., I played the tape again. The footage was longer. Now it showed the killer walking through my house before the murder, past my bedroom, into the bathroom. The mirror reflected nothing. Then, a glitch. The killer's face flickered into view for a single frame. My face, but wrong. Eyes black and wet like a shark's. Mouth unhinged, too wide. Teeth neat. The timestamp on the VCR jumped to 3:16 a.m. The killer turned toward the camera. Toward me. Putin whispered, "You're making it worse." Then my throat split on screen. The word this time. Final playthrough. It's 3:14 a.m. I'm typing this on my phone as the VCR whirs behind me. The tape is playing itself now. I tore up the carpet an hour ago. The bloodstains underneath matched the footage exactly. The clear the other me was right. Every time I watched, the murder happened sooner. First it was next week, then tomorrow. Now tonight the VCR just ejected the tape. There's new footage on it. The label says, "Live. Confession file 049. I found the instructions etched into my skin. This is confession file 049. I didn't write the instructions down. They were already there when I woke up. Etched lightly into my skin. Not carved, not inked. Pressed, like they were waiting under the surface for the right day. Sixth line, pale as veins, faintly raised like scar tissue. I stood in the mirror, shirt lifted, breath fogging the glass, trying not to panic as I read. Wake up quietly, don't touch the hallway door, don't respond to your name until after the tone, check the fridge for the box, don't open the box, remember the phrase. You are the rehearsal. At first I thought it was a dream or breakdown, but my phone buzzed with a notification I've never seen before. Task set confirmed. Do not abandon path no atlas source. I rubbed my stomach again. The lines were still there. By the time I finished reading, I heard a knock on the hallway door, not the front door, the interior hallway. The one that leads to the bedroom. It knocked once, then again. Then I heard my name, Jamie. The voice was mine. Soft, careful, perfectly measured. "Jamie, are you ready yet? You said this time would be easier." I didn't respond. Rule number 3. Don't respond to your name until after the tone. A second later, my phone played a low, humming tune. Then silence. Then the hallway door opened on its own, but no one came out. I stayed still for a long time, then went to the fridge. Inside, a small white box, wrapped in wax paper. No labels, no marks. Step 4, check the fridge for the box. Step 5, don't open it. So I didn't bite, I put my ear to it. And I swear I heard breathing, shallow, rhythmic, like something very small, or very far away. When I set it down, the paper shifted. And on the bottom of the box, something had been scrawled in my handwriting. "Good, you're holding steady. Keep resisting the impulse. She needs to finish learning you before she wears you full time." That night, I slept in the tub. No mirrors, no lights. But I woke up standing at the foot of my bed, holding the box. The wrapping was peeled back. The top was slightly open. Nothing, just one word etched into the bottom. Accepted. My skin had new markings. This time on my forearm. No numbered list. Just one sentence, faint and tight. "Say yes when she asks." I tried to scrub it off. Bleached sandpaper, it didn't fade. Later that day, a voicemail appeared on my phone. No number, no time. Just a recording of me saying, "Okay, I'm ready to go now." I haven't said that. The door's been cracked open for an hour now, and I can hear footsteps inside the hallway. Getting closer, pausing, then stepping away. Then closer again. She's practicing my pace, and I think she's already better at it than I ever was. Confession file 048. They told me to do the tasks. Or ID slip again. This is confession file 048. My name is Kara. I've been completing the tasks for I don't know how long. I don't remember agreeing to any of this, but the list is always there when I wake up. Folded on my nightstand, typed, centered, at the top. The same header every time. Do not slip. Follow the tasks to maintain your place. Today's list. Wake before 6:30, drink something warm, observe mirror for 30 seconds, do not speak before. 9 a.m, look under the couch, watch what happens, do not interfere. It's always strange, always slightly wrong. But the voice in my head now, the one that reads the list when I close my eyes, it feels anchored, like if I don't obey it'll unhook something deeper. The first time I ignored the list, I lost a day. Skipped step 3. Observe mirror that morning. Everything was too clean. The house was perfect. Counters scrubbed, shoes aligned, fridge restocked with food I don't eat. And the clock blinked 12 o'clock in every room, but time kept moving. When I checked my phone, I had a missed call from Kara. Voicemail: "Don't skip again, you won't come back whole." I completed every task the next day, but every time I follow the list, I feel like I've earned the right to stay. Today's list scared me more than usual, especially step 5. Look under the couch. I stared at it all morning, afraid to check, afraid not to. When I finally knelt down and lifted the flap, there was a single black shoe. It wasn't mine inside it. A folded note you passed. You remembered where I left off. I didn't write that, but the handwriting was close, like someone trying to impersonate me and almost getting it right. Step 6 said, "Watch what happens, do not interfere," so I sat lights off, no sound, and I watched. At exactly 6:13 p.m., the mirror in the hallway fogged over, but no one was in the house. The fog started from the inside. Then a handprint pressed against the glass. Long fingers smudged palm, like someone had been trapped on the wrong side of the reflection for hours. I didn't move. The hand slowly slid down and vanished. I went to the kitchen. Tomorrow's list was already on the table. Dated, signed. Tasks 4049. Compliance noted. It started with, "Do not eat until someone knocks. Let the knock repeat 3 times. And so on the 4th. Even if no one's there, I don't know how much longer I'll be the one reading these. I feel her sometimes." The other Kara, the one that comes if I slip. She's more organized, smarter, calmer. She finishes the lists faster than I do. She never forgets the mirror. I used to think I was being tested. Now I think I'm being phased out. And the scariest part, I'm starting to help her.